Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Alex Benega. Today I'm going to do a short, quick video on the number one question I get asked as a designer, and that is please describe your design process. So every time I speak to a new client, every time I've ever interviewed, that's probably the most common question that I've ever got is please describe your design process. Um, for me personally, it's an easy answer. I just go over what I do. Um, I know a lot of designers that it actually stumps and maybe it throws them off because you're not sure what the right answer is. But the real answer is there's no right answer to what's the perfect design process. I'm gonna give you guys mine, but I know so many designers who maybe get stuck in that question, or maybe you're a new designer trying to find out what your design process should be. And for me, I've always just kept it extremely simple. And I've had to convince myself over the years that if someone doesn't like my answer to my design process, maybe they're looking for someone more complex. Maybe they're looking for someone who has way more experience than me or something. I've been doing design now for 6 years. I like to keep things extremely simple. And if, the recruiter, the client, if someone disagrees with my design process, I've taken that out of my own hands and I've put that back on whoever is asking me that question. And what that means is I'm not going to adjust my design process or the way I say things or the way I go about how I work with clients just to satisfy someone's need on making it sound like I know what I'm doing, right? That's what a portfolio is for. Um, so to give you guys my design process, it's very simple. I'm going to tell you guys my design process with a full-time job and also a contracting job. When it comes to a contracting job, a client will reach out. They'll usually reach out and say, I found you through X, whether that be Dribbble, a referral, something online, and I'm looking to have X designed, whether that be a website, an app, flyers, something in the design space, right? They'll reach out with that, and then they'll say, can I have a quote? Can I have your availability? So what I do is I keep it simple, right? The quote, I actually need information from the client for, well, what do you need? If it's a website, how many pages? How much content is on each page? If it's, a mobile app, how many screens are there, right? And then my availability, I'm always available if I'm contracting, right? Like I'm not going to say no to projects. If I'm too busy, sometimes I'll outsource it and I'll let the client know, like, hey, I'm going to work with this designer to outsource a specific project. Um, but for the most part, I'm very open about it. The next step would be, after giving them an availability quote and a price quote, if we do decide to work together, I tell the client up front, look, you're not going to overwhelm me with meetings. We're not going to get on the phone every morning at 7 a.m. and then you're going to get an update at 9 p.m. And then, right before bed, I'll check in with you. I'm not that guy. So you come to me when you need good designs, good quality, I have integrity and I want to do good work, right? So what I typically tell my clients is the communication base is going to go through email. The reason I like it, via email instead of a phone call or a Skype call is because things don't get lost in email. If we're doing a phone call, you could say some things and I could be writing notes, but chances are I might miss notes because I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying on the phone or via Skype, right? Um, so I tell the client, look, email is the best way. I can use the feedback that you give me as a checklist, and we can go from there. Um, and then, we dive straight into design. There's no, unless a client requests wireframes, which most of the time they don't, the clients want something fast. They want something speedy. So I like to dive straight into visual design, get to version one of what they like, as fast as possible. And what that means is a lot of iterations. Maybe the first version, they really like, but there's a few things that they want edited, or maybe they don't like it and they're like, hey, we need to go to another direction. But the main thing is getting to that I call it brutal feedback stage as quick as possible, to where the client's like, look, I like X, 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 and please remove Y, 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 Y. If I can get to that as quick as possible, usually takes like a day or two, or maybe a couple emails back and forth with iteration, then I know the project is actually going how it should be, and we're moving forward. And then the final, after the design is done, the final step is just sending off sketch files. You know, Sometimes I work with clients who their developers need the sketch file exported into Ziplin. or Zeppelin. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But sometimes people just need sketch files, and sometimes they need. I've worked with companies where they need like red lines drawn with how much margin and padding is in between each button, or basically taking that website and stylizing it into a style guide that developers could read to say, okay, this text right here is 54 pixels. This text right here is, 18 pixels, whatever that is. So it all depends on the client. The main thing is finding out what the client wants and just being able to be honest with yourself and see if you can deliver it. So many times I've overpromised or I've said yes to the just to satisfy a client. And over the years, I've worked very hard on just being a very, very blunt with the client as far as you're not going to harass me. We're not going to, I'm not going to get on a call with you every hour. It's going to be day by day iteration. You've seen the work that I can produce on my portfolio. And if you like it, I'd love to work with you. Like I said, I have integrity. I want to keep a good name. But I think a lot of people in the design community and the people that I've spoken with over the years, they almost get bullied by clients and they have such a bad experience that they give up or they don't want to do contracting or freelance work anymore. And that was me. I think the only difference was I had no other choice but to continue to take on clients when I was, coming up and learning and stuff like that. So I had to mentally erase some of the bad experiences. Now I didn't have like extremely bad experience, right? I've never like not gotten paid like a full amount or something like that. Like there's been nothing too brutal or crazy, but I've definitely been in the ship where iteration process has gone on for months when the project was supposed to take weeks, and it's just not a good feeling. So that's my overall design process when it comes to contracting work. When it comes to interviewing for a full-time job, and the recruiter or the design manager or whatever is asking you like what's your design process. Look, first off, it's kind of the same principle. I like to understand about the project that I'm working on. What are the goals, what are the tasks. If I can know the goals, the client is trying to increase signups, or we're trying to get users to engage more with this product. Well, okay, good. That's awesome. Then I would go on to, where's the content? What's the content look like? How much content do we have for this page? Is the content being fixed right now? Is it getting cleaned up? Because sometimes the content can actually have a direct effect on the design if we have a good content writer involved. And the next step would be just, like I said in the contracting phase of this video, which is getting straight into design, getting to that iteration phase as quick as possible, not spending weeks and weeks and weeks on wireframes and the idea phase of things, but getting straight into, okay, here's what I'm thinking. This is what I've spent, the past 2 days or the past 7 hours working on. What are your honest, brutal thoughts? I say the word brutal because when I share with my clients and even full time, some of the contract managers and stuff, they want to be nice and tiptoe around. "Oh, I don't really like that. I like that." And then it leads on to this weird cycle where they're not really telling you what the real problem is, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And then the project goes on for 3 weeks more than it should have, right? So I like to say brutal feedback because then the people know that are giving me feedback. Oh, okay, I can be honest with this kid. He's not going to get in his panties. He's not going to be upset. He's not going to quit the project because I offended him verbally by dissing his design. That's why I like to say the word brutal feedback whenever I'm talking to the person that I'm working with. And that's what I would tell a full-time recruit, not a full-time recruiter, but whoever I'm interviewing for that full-time position. So that's my feedback on the number one question that I see getting asked, the number one question I've been asked. Just be honest. Maybe your process is different than mine. Maybe you do like spending 2 weeks on wireframing. We'll be honest about that. Let the client know, like, yo, this is why I like doing wireframes for 2 weeks. And, you know, I'm not really opposed to doing something a different way, but I'd prefer to do it my way. And I do recommend doing it your way as a designer because you know your way. You're familiar with how you do things. You've done it for a lot of different clients, and trying to adjust your program to satisfy one client could potentially throw off your design career. You could get so in the mindset of saying yes to everyone else's process instead of just buckling down on yours that, like, you don't ever get consistency, and you don't ever hit like a stride with how to work with different clients. And working with clients should be fast, it should be lucrative, it should pay good money. You shouldn't spend months and months and months on a couple week project. So you guys are just gonna have to feel that out if you're coming new to design. My biggest piece of advice, if I can give any, would just be stay consistent to who you are as a person. When I buckled down and I was like, no, I'm not getting on the phone with you 3 times a day. We're not going to be getting on Skype calls and I'm going to be sharing my screen every hour. You're going to send me feedback once I send you a design via email. And from there, I can use that as a checklist and we can just, make it better. My whole design career went up. Clients were more satisfied because I knew what I was doing. I knew how to get that brutal feedback as quick as possible. I was satisfied with how much time I was spending on feedback design and not just creative design. And it just worked out for the best. So those are just some tips on the number one asked question for designers, which is describe your process, your design process. If you guys have any questions, email me in the description below. And otherwise, YouTube. Until next time, I'm out.